So just a quick introduction. Of course, this investigation, this research involved a lot of people and several researchers of different areas because it's multidisciplinary. And Pedro Bege has accompanied me in several aspects, and he mostly is this kind of artist that picks up a large amount of data and makes a beautiful article. So it has been very important in the publication of results. And Roberto Sanches is a Spanish biologist who has been working on the Spanish imperial eagle, or the Iberian imperial eagle, for a long time, close to the Ministry of the Environment in Spain. And as there is an agreement between Portugal and Spain concerning the imperial eagle, he has helped the Portuguese to follow and make a large part of the monitoring. So we agreed to present it all together. So I introduced already the Borealis eagle in the tree nesting population, and an overview of the different types of habitats. This is the typical habitat in the southwest uplands, where I found the population at first, and in fact it was where it existed most of the pairs at the time. So it's a large area of scrubland with cork oak forest, cork oak woodland, and some areas of eucalyptus plantations and so on. So in this type of habitat, the nests are mostly, large part of them are on large eucalyptus, old eucalyptus, 80 years, 100 years old, and so the nests are quite high. They can reach almost 30 meters high in many cases. Then you see the old traditional tree nesting in the area in cork oaks. Cork oak is typical from the southwestern Iberia. It is the cork oak that produces the cork for the wine bottles tap. Then there are other types in using pines, maritime pine, Pinus pinaster, or an exotic Pinus radiata from California, or even plantations, industrial, commercial eucalyptus plantations. You see the nest, which is indicated by the arrow here. The nest is here, and it's a large eucalyptus plantation. On the other hand, in the lowlands, this is the typical landscape appearance of the nesting habitat. So these are these large trees that bear the nests, and the large part of the habitat is a mosaic between scrub and large areas of open habitat, what we can call agro steppe, because it's an artificial steppe. Is created by cereal production, and so these are the typical situations in these lowlands, especially in almost all the nests are on eucalyptus, large and tall eucalyptus. A third subpopulation exists to the north of Lisbon. If you have an idea where Lisbon is, near the coast, and the area is very populated, very humanized. Nevertheless, it has a small population of Borealis eagle thriving very close to human infrastructures, cities, and so on. So they are an extreme of tolerance of the species. You can see where the nest is, and this is an old palace, but is well used by people from the neighboring town. And this is typical for the whole subpopulation. And for the last type of habitats is in the coastal pine woods that surround the large estuaries of the Sado and the Tejo, the main rivers in Portugal. And so they breed in dense pine woods like this. And the population has started from about from 33 pairs in 1991 to a current minimum of 96 pairs. So it's a fast-growing and spreading population. And so increase it at a mean of almost 3 pairs per year. This is unique in Europe. And of course, I say the minimum of 96 pairs because we know some pairs that are still unconfirmed, so I let it beside. And this tree nesting population at the moment represents 70% of the whole population of the species in Portugal. And this is an overview of how it happened, this spreading and this increase of the population. In 1990, these are the southwest uplands I've shown in the first instance, and then very scattered all over. This is north of Lisbon. Lisbon is here, so this is the subpopulation I've told you about right now, and these are scattered mountainous areas or rivers. This is the Guadiana River. And then it started when I started to follow the population in 1991. And so that was the initial situation. And in the next 4 years, there were several pairs that got established, but really slowly still. But then it started to grow faster, and especially by filling gaps in the southwest population, and started to increase. This is the lowlands, the main lowland area for breeding. And also, it's also the main area for dispersing birds, young birds. At first there were only 2 pairs, then 4 pairs, then 8 pairs. And the population here went on the next years filling the gaps and filling the peripheries. But at the same time, it started to follow the coastal mountains, the coastal hills upward and northwards. So in this movement. But as you see, the lowlands keep getting denser and denser and denser. So that's the front of, that was the front of expansion in between 2005 and 2010. And you could wonder, that was not well monitored, but it was. So this is real expansion. And finally, it goes on accumulating and getting denser in this area. But this happened only after it's saturated in the hills. To have an idea how the distribution, the types of nesting behavior. In the south, you have almost most, in this is out of date already, because there are only 2 pairs now, cliff nesters. And then you have a transition zone, but in the north there is no tree nesting at all. And this is the aspect of the Douro Valley here, in the Douro catchment, the Douro Basin, where the cliff nesting population exists. So not only there was an upward trend in the number of territories, but also a downward trend in the cliff nesting percentages. So that came down very, very steeply. And also they appeared mixed pairs. No, not mixed pairs, mixed type of nesting. Some pairs either nested on trees, and the percentage of pairs that were cliff nesters and resorted to tree nesting was this, as you see. And all new territories are tree nesting, and only one changed from tree to cliff nesting because of disturbance and so on. Along the years, that's not all we made, but it's the main points. We made a study on trichomoniasis prevalence. We developed morphometric and molecular techniques for sexing young birds on the end. There was a study on osteostructural abnormalities in eggs and in eggshell and membranes. It was a PhD thesis held in Spain with material from Portugal and other populations in Spain. Then we studied it in the southwest uplands, the spatial variation of metry and the diet and trophic ecology of the species, with a focus on dietary role of domestic pigeons, because domestic pigeons were one of the main staple prey. So we wanted to understand what's the role of the domestic pigeons on the ecology of the species. And then with data from several populations in Iberia, including our two populations in north and south, there was a study by Marcos Molion in Spain of the response of the species to the crash of the rabbit, so the large-scale spatial temperature shifts, and the same style of article, another one also conducted by Marcos Molion. Then with parameters, breeding population parameters from several populations in Iberia, also there was made a study on population dynamics modeling. And finally, we studied also at Iberian level, Mediterranean level, the large-scale population genetic structure. So, just giving some examples about the pigeons, why we like to stick domestic prey. The case of Penelicigas and pigeon was one of the outbreaks produced. And so we studied the diet of all the pairs. We studied the food resources, namely rabbits and rural pigeons. We counted every living pigeon loft in the area, and also related the diet with resources and with habitat and so on. And so we found that rural pigeons had a critical role in the beginning of in the early breeding season. Then gradually they were replaced by the wild species. And there was not a traditional shifting between rabbits and pigeons as expected. So they were sort of two important complementary species in diet, in the ecology. Then we found in a study on trichomoniasis that there was a large percentage of nestling mortality due to trichomoniasis. So 1/3 of the nestling mortality was due to disease, trichomoniasis disease. And that represents also 7% of all the nestlings that were born. So it could be quite important, despite the fact that it's quite oscillating from year to year. It's not constant. There are years with a high prevalence and years with low prevalence. And interestingly, as a domestic pigeon is the main reservoir, of the Trichomonas gallinae. when the domestic pigeons had a steep decrease in numbers with the aging of the human population. So accompanied that, the prevalence of trichomoniasis also decreased. Then there's the example of the ecotoxicology study. So we had the question. There is a power plant, coal power plant here, and this is downwind of the coal power plant. So we posed the question: this mercury produced by the power plant is contaminating the area, and as it does it distribute accordingly to the hypothesis that it's disseminated contamination? And we found, yes, that we studied on feathers the level of mercury on the prey, the main prey identified, and the Bonelli seagull itself. And so we found in all species, even after correcting for dietary variability among pairs, we found that there was a trend of decreasing trend from this area to the southwest. Then that study on the modeling of population dynamics shows, made by Hernandez Matias and joining everyone that is working on the Bonelli seagull in Iberia and in France. We show that the southern populations at present and in the future are sources of that allow the sink populations to survive. So and so in general, all these populations belong to a single spatial structure population, but with a source sink dynamics. And so the southern Iberian populations act as sources and sustain all other local populations. And the only population that is really steadily increasing and at the same time expanding is the southern Portugal population, which was studied here. Then we collected blood samples from nestlings for around 130 nestlings in the southwest Portugal population, and then we recovered samples from other populations in Spain also, and then we compared the structure, the genetic structure of the populations in the area, and we found that there are three main units: one in north and central Iberia, one in the south, southeast and Morocco, which means that there's some gene flow between Morocco and southeast Iberia, and another one which is quite differentiated, and this is the tree nesting population. So the tree nesting population differentiates as clearly as you can see. In this case, you have the Cyprus data here, and here you don't. So in any case, especially here, when you eliminate the effect of the Cyprus population, you see how it goes out of the general situation. So there was weak to moderate differentiation among subpopulations within an isolation by distance pattern. So closer populations are more alike than, of course, those that are more distant. And there was a low genetic diversity and high divergence in southwest Portugal, probably due to population small size, of course, peripheral position, and or ecological divergence due to tree nesting imprinted behavior. So in some way it is likely that the tree nesting behavior reduces the gene flow between these populations and the others. And we are going on with these genetic studies. And at the moment we collected, this is not completed the map now, but it's a preliminary map. But we collected molting feathers from the adults of almost all the population, the tree nesting populations, in the southern population. And then there were developed 40 microsatellites. And we are trying to see what's the story of this. And one of the things that shows that are two different units, genetic units. In the green is the new tree nesting population that is spreading and covering the whole ground. But there are relics, there are residuals of a former population, and this one is unlike the other populations in Iberia. So it's the general picture is like a wave of modern behaving eagles replacing the former old-fashioned, let's say this way. We also made, equipped 10 contiguous eagles of contiguous territories, 10 eagles from each territory, contiguous one, during a life project, a life conservation project, with PTTs, and this is just a general aspect of what we got in raw data. There's still, it is still onwards the studying of this data. It's a large amount, and our objective was to know the impact of overhead wires like high tension voltage power lines and windmills, wind farms, and eucalyptus. It has the potential of disturbing and damaging the nesting habitat. So the main conservation actions were nest reinforcement and building of artificial nests, building of improved pigeon lots in collaboration with hunters associations, habitat matching and tree leasing agreements with landowners that have the nests on their properties, technical assistance to paper companies of eucalyptus plantations, electric companies, and wind farm promoters. So we try to avoid that the habitat would be spoiled. Okay, coming quickly to the Iberian eagle. It disappeared as a breeder in Portugal around the 80s, 30 years ago. And then 30 years later, it started to come back. And so the Aquila galberti. This is the main aspect of the habitat, very lowland, open, and with a mosaic of spread of hills. And so they breed it in situations like this, large isolated eucalyptus or umbrella pine grooves, in the middle of this arterial steppe. Or in eucalyptus galleries along streams, or in river slopes, like this is Valguadiana, and they are breeding on Pinus pinea, on umbrella pines. Further north, there's a quite similar type of habitat. There are plateaus of the river Tejo, or the Tejo basin, with stands of eucalyptus and pines where the eagles breed, like in this situation. And for the south, there's more traditional type of habitat known formerly when the eagles were reduced to small numbers. This is holm oak forest, Mediterranean forest, but they are breeding in eucalyptus. Now, this shows how the population increased so fast since it first appeared in 2001. So 10 years later, we have already 12 pairs of two main areas. And well, in the map, to show you in the map, the first area, and then the second pair, Then the first two pairs in the lowland flatlands, and then these two clusters that are growing very fast, especially this one. And these are some individuals that were marked, were intact, with radio tagged. And then in Spain, in Doñana, and in Cádiz and Doñana, and they were found breeding here in the southeast lowlands, and also this one in the same population, and this one from the Sierra de San Pedro population. Main causes of mortality are electrocution and in immatures. So these immatures are naturally the most vulnerable age class. This particular bird was shot by a hunter because of a dispute between two hunting estates. Yeah, as a revenge, you know, it was to complain that there were the neighbor that did that. So the monitoring has been done, is going on, and some very specific conservation measures, like pre-nest, artificial nests. This is natural nest, artificial nest, and control of it, and to reduce mortality, to improve breeding success, there's been enforcement, artificial nest vigilance, and adjusting forestry operations, and so on. So this is all done within a memorandum of understanding between Portugal and Spain on the joint conservation of the species. Спасибо.